Hi, I'm DuEwa Frazier, and you're listening to episode 30 of Nerdacity podcast. My guest is Cheryl Boyce-Taylor, a notable poet and curator born in Trinidad and raised in Queens, New York. Cheryl is the author of 5 collections of poetry: Raw Air, Night When Moon Follows, Convincing the Body, Arrival, and her most recent Mama Phife Represents, a verse memoir about her son, hip hop legend Malik Phife Dawg Taylor. Cheryl holds a master's degree in social work from Fordham University and an MFA in creative writing from Stonecoast, the University of Southern Maine. Thanks for listening. Cheryl,
Hi, DuEwa. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. It's so lovely to be speaking to you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's such an honor to speak with you. And, your voice is just like sunshine to me. It
Oh,
always
thank
has
you.
been. The joy that comes from your voice and from your poetry is is sincerely felt.
Well, I really do appreciate that. It's taken a while to get the joy back in my life and in my poetry, but it's here and I'm so grateful.
It's so wonderful. Well, congratulations on your new book, Mama Phife Represents, a verse memoir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And, as I'm reading through your work, I find such a in-depth bearing of your soul, creative, linking to your son, Malik, who we've known, especially of my hip hop generation, who we've known as Malik Phife Dawg, from the uh,
A tribe called
notable, that's right. Go
a
ahead,
tribe
mama.
called Quest.
That's right. A Tribe Called Quest. Such a wonderful hip hop group. Your son, such a valuable, important member of the hip hop community and this legacy. And then we have the link to you as Mama, poet, workshop facilitator, and founder curator of Calypso Muse and the Glitter Pomegranate Performance Series, as well as being a finalist for the Patterson Poetry Prize, and on and on.
Yes, it's I continue to work. I've been doing poetry. Oh my goodness. Well, Malik was 50 last year. So I have been doing poetry for about 50 years because I
Wow.
started even before he was born. And I love it. I find it's the thing that helps me to heal the most, no matter
Hmm.
what I'm going through. Even when I'm having fun times, happy times, I always return to the poetry for guidance, to be grateful, to share joy. So this is a big, big part of my life, thanks to my mom who introduced me to poetry.
Wow. There's something about the mother, literally and figuratively, as a passing down of arts, culture, language, creativity. Do you find, as you just mentioned, Malik was a poet, he's the hip hop generation poet, but you're a poet. And then your mother uh, gifted you with the word, so to speak. And
Yes.
so what do you think about that thread and that legacy that was really running through your family line through generations?
Grateful for my mother. And we're from Trinidad, as you know, and in that culture, poetry was a very big part of the school education. So my mother, her teachers would give them long poems to memorize, and they were the English classics. So they gave them long poems to memorize, and then they would have to recite them in front of the class and sometimes in front of the school. And my mother was such a lover of poetry. she won a lot of awards for her poetry. And as it turns out, my ex-husband's mother, who's my son's dad, she and my mother were best friends in grade school, and they vied with each other for to recite these long poems. So I would say that Malik gets it from all sides. And,
Wow.
and so I grew up for my first 13 years in Trinidad. And during that time, I had that same experience. Our teacher would take us out under the tree every Tuesday afternoon, and the class would have to recite the poems that they had been given to memorize the week before. So it's always been in my blood. And my mom read poems at bedtime to me, and then she read to Malik. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Mm. A
it's
true
in my
reverence
system. Yes.
for the word, for the literary and written word and spoken word.
Yeah. Well, my mom never wrote her own poems, but boy, did she memorize long poems. And when she died at 85, that week, she recited, I forget the name, something, The Brigade. And that was a long poem that she learned when she was 8.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And
Yeah.
so, did your mother have a chance to witness the art form, the hip hop poetry of Malik?
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. He shared poems with her, but she was Seventh-day Adventist. And he invited her many times to go to his shows when they were in the New York area. But she did come to the Bowery Poetry Cafe when Malik and I did a Mother's Day reading together in 2003. So she did get a chance to hear him. She was always afraid of the curses. So she didn't want to come for a while, but she came. He and I
Sure.
performed, and she was thrilled.
Oh, I'm sure. How amazing that is. And then how amazing for you to witness what you had really nurtured for so many years. And did your son witness you as an active poet as well?
Oh yes,
Okay.
because my undergraduate degree was in speech and theater. So I would sometimes have to take him to classes with me, or at least to rehearsals when I was in a play or I was doing poetry. I would sometimes have to take him to rehearsal because I didn't have a sitter.
Mm-hmm.
And so he sat there and took it all in. He played a lot while he was there in the back of the theater. But I would finally say, okay, sit now. And he would take it all in. And then I think it was third grade. In his third grade school yearbook, when he was asked the question, what did he want to do? He said, a poet and an actor. So
Wow.
yeah, so that was wonderful.
So you were really his first model for not only being a writer, but being a performer, being on stage.
Yes, yes. He
Mm-hmm.
learned that that was a viable way to make a living. Although I had other jobs while I was in school or while I was performing, I had other jobs to assist with the household because his dad and I were both in school and both working. And so he saw all of that. I guess when his turn came, he decided the only thing he was going to do was his art.
Wow, exactly.
So he did
And
that.
what an art it was. The worldwide tours and the music videos and all of the acclaim and popularity.
Yeah, throughout all of that, he was still the humblest, loving son. And I continue to be amazed by the things people say about him. I mean, I knew that he was a powerhouse, but after his death, with people talking about it from far and wide, it gave us a bigger view into his life. And I tell you, I keep feeling proud because I keep meeting people through him. It's I can't tell you. I know I'm a mom and I shouldn't brag, but boy oh boy, I am so proud of him. And his wife and I, it's one of the things that has really helped us to heal in these last 5 years. The comments from people about Malik's work and what it did for them and how it changed the landscape of music in the world. It is really something to feel very proud of as a mother.
Oh,
It
I'm
really
sure.
is.
And that's wonderful. That is just the highest, to be able to actually, to be proud of your son or your daughter, and then to not only be able to link to, your what you're passionate about to what they're passionate about.
Yeah, and
That
to hear people say what a good person he was.
mm-hmm.
That weighs the heaviest or the lightest on my heart, to
Mm.
hear people say what a good person he was. And sometimes people say that when someone dies, but this is all of his friends. They each feel like a best friend. It was so heartening, so heartening, really.
That's wonderful. And Cheryl, my memories of you, although we may not have seen each other recently, we're always linked and connected in the poetry network. And I
Yes,
remember you being a wonderful curator and host for Pomegranate reading series in
Ye-
Brooklyn, and you're the
yes,
founder
you
of.
read there at Eve's
Yes, I
Lounge.
did. Thank you so much. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. I really enjoyed it. And you're also the founder of Calypso Muse. Can we talk about your your creativity in extending to other poets, and how that merges in with you as a poet, being a curator, being a founder, and being someone who is really a leader in the poetry community? How has that been for you?
Well, I think that the feel for community and inclusion is something that I've always had in my heart. Like when I thought about being a poet, I always thought about including other voices. I mean, writing poetry is a solitary act, but pulling community together is not. And that has been always something that I strive for. I'll tell you something funny, that how we've been locked away this last year. Well, I have been so hungry for seeing people's face and hearing their voices. I wrote on Facebook, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, that I want people to meet me in the park so we can talk about poetry, read poetry, talk about how we're managing. And I said a small group. Well, I got about 15 people. I'm not having all of them because the small group
Right.
is where people feel safer and can really pour out their hearts. But this is I've been hungry for my sisters and for my fellow poets in the community. So we're meeting in the park
Wow.
to starting next month.
Oh, that is amazing. That's wonderful. And I love the way you create community and you maintain community, Cheryl, in
Thank you.
addition to being such a productive poet whose work resonates with so many people.
Well, for over the when how this first began was I was reading poetry at the New Eurekan, and at that time, this is like late '80s, early '90s. At that time, it was we had a different climate there. We did not read for money. We did not read for pay. We read for the pleasure and the enjoyment of it. So it gave it a different feel.
Mm.
So like it was not as competitive as it is now. Not that that is a bad thing, but we were enjoying like a party lifestyle while we did poetry, hanging out and doing poetry all hours. And I was very well received But what I missed was the voice of the Caribbean artists.
Mm.
Particularly, it started with the Trinidadian. That is an accent so deep in my soul that I missed it when I didn't have it. And so in 1994, I set out to find Trinidadian poets or poets of Caribbean descent. And that is how Calypso Muse began. It it mushroomed into um, from readings to workshops to sponsoring book parties, for people, to doing retreats outside of the city. So it has just turned into so many different things. Now I'm mentoring different poets, and through a foundation that I started for Malik called Phife Dawg Poetry, um, I have just given a grant to women writers in bloom.
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, for the work that Juliet JP Howard does with the community.
Yes, that's so true. That's wonderful.
And the next group would be One Breath Rising and then Urban Word. So I don't know, poetry is my whole life. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have it, honestly.
Wow.
Particularly now that I've retired from social work.
Yes, and I do remember some years back you mentioning saying on the mic at one of the events that you were either approaching retirement or had just retired. And, it was a lot of cheering and people were congratulating you. And I remember, people congratulating you online as well.
That was 9 years ago.
Wow. Time flies when you're
You,
having
you
fun,
can't
right?
believe how quickly that goes.
It's amazing. And so tell me, Cheryl, it's a question that I've asked a number of my guests. I have this curiosity because I think about it for myself. How has the pandemic impacted your creativity and your writing, if at all, or what have you learned about yourself as a poet in the middle of this, strange and different and difficult time that we've been in?
Well, I have continued to write, not every day, but a lot of writing. I had, like I have the Mama Fife book, although that came out that went to the publishers before. But I finished my new book, which is We Are Not Wearing Helmets, and it's political poems and poems that honor community and the women whose shoulders I walk under. So that's another thing. Then I wrote a bunch of pandemic poems with a writing group that I have, an online writing group I named after my mother. We're called Elmer's Heart Circle. And we write at least 100 poems a year.
Wow.
Yeah, so I have to say that I am not feeling any lack of writing because of the pandemic. However, what I do feel is more clarity and more of a need to call it as I see it and to say it as I want to. And I don't care whom it offends. That
Wow.
is clearer because this is my work and there's no way I could step back from it. Plus, I'm 70. Who cares? I have to say what I want to say.
That is so true. Yes, it's speak your truth, and make it plain.
Oh boy, have I called out this country and the city of New York. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I'm not apologetic. Somebody has to call them out. I may not be marching in the line with the Black Lives Matter, but I am penning it up.
And
I
that is
have
so
my
wonderful. I
pen.
love to hear that, because this pandemic, you could look at it in a number of ways. You could say, you know what, I've got all the time now and no distraction. I can create at heart's content. Or you could have, frozen and stood still.
Oh yeah. And
you
it
know,
was hard to keep moving. It was so hard, especially after George Floyd died. Oh my God,
Oh,
looking at the
yes.
news every day and seeing all of the people of color that were dying, it
Mm-hmm.
seemed like so easily, like we were the only ones just falling. Oh, it was hard to work through that. I don't know how successful I would have been had I not been writing with my group, Elmer's Heart Circle.
Wow.
I don't know. There are 10 of us that write in that group. And we first started off with the 30-30, where
Mm-hmm.
every April you write 30 poems in 30 days.
Oh,
And
sure. Mm-hmm.
generally, when the end of April came, we were like, okay, let's write in May and June.
Exactly. Let's, get it
Let's
together.
keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really held us together emotionally. Oh boy, it was rough.
And in your group, is this a support for, okay, we're writing these poems every day, or as you mentioned, that's 30-30, but for your other group, we're writing up to 100 poems a year. Is that also geared toward uh, publishing
Oh
or?
yes, oh
Mm-hmm.
yes. Well, the way that my group works is that you have to send a poem every day by midnight. And it has to be a new poem. You cannot send an old poem or say you're rewriting something. So it lets you put out a bunch of work. Now, when we're not writing, that's your time to edit and send out. We give some feedback, but the feedback is more like, oh my goodness, I like those images. I like all the color in that poem.
Mm,
This poem ended for me here at line 10. You know, those kinds of things. Not heavy and detailed
right.
because it's 10 of us. You know, you have to read 10 poems.
Yes.
So,
That's wonderful. I love to
yeah.
hear that.
Yeah. And
Having,
people do publish a lot. They publish a lot. JP just got a poem, Juliet JP Howard. She just
mm-hmm,
got a poem published that she wrote last month in April. She's about her boys, her sons, and their
yeah,
safety at home. She just got it published. It should be coming out any day now. So yeah, a
nice.
lot of work falls out. Well, almost complete.
And it's so nice to have that feedback from a group. It validates your work while you are growing and creating.
Yeah, and we're each writing together about 9 years now.
Oh wow!
the
So
same
you
the
are
same group. Yeah,
a
so we
true
trust
family.
each other. Yes. Yeah, it's 9 women. I mean 10 women. We
10 women.
trust each other implicitly.
That's wonderful, Cheryl. I love to hear that. And this is good for anyone who, people who listen to the playback of this. I've talked with writers in the past about, what do you do if you have writer's block? What do you do if you reach a stumbling point and you don't know how to get started? And you're mentioning a writer's circle, a writer's group, even if it's online,
Oh
is,
yeah. Oh
to
yeah.
me, one of those ways that you can avoid any kind of writer's block because you have such great support.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I want to stress is you don't have to have 10 people to have, you can have a one other person or two persons, three persons writing in a group. It is so supportive.
Yes,
You don't need a
indeed.
large group. You just need to put it out to friends. Say, hey, I'm going to start writing every day for the next 3 weeks. Who wants to join me?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. Yes.
So
Yes,
that,
indeed.
yeah. So
And
that's what I've done. That now I didn't write this year. First time in 13 years. I didn't do the 30-30.
it's so funny because I was looking for your 30-30 posts, Cheryl, in April. I
Yeah.
don't think I saw those.
Yeah. No, I didn't this year because, on tour with the book online.
That's right.
On
It's
tour with the book on Zoom, it was very difficult. And plus, getting feedback from the second book, I knew that I couldn't do it. I got shaky just thinking about it.
Oh wow.
so I stopped. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I missed it so much. I almost cried one day.
Oh, no, but you're doing such great work. And so I'm really glad you mentioned that because I wanted to, well, first circle back to, what or who is your inspiration? I would love to know, who are some of your favorite poets? And I
Hmm.
love that you talked about your background and your mother's early encouragement, but now bringing that to the present, who do you look to or who do you read or what music is inspiring you now and
Yeah.
those kind of things.
Okay, so some of the people. Well, I Audre Lorde is one of the first poets that come to mind, and it's not so much for her poetry, but it's a lot for her boldness, her bravery, and she was not always brave about her work. She will tell you that herself.
Yes.
But she taught us you have to keep writing, and just when it feels I can't say this, that is when you dig in.
Mm.
Just when it feels, no, this is going to hurt me or hurt someone else, you find a way to put that down. The other person I studied with that influenced me so much was Entezaki Shange.
Oh, yes. Hmm.
And what she would scream at the class, a dancer goes to the bar every day. You, as a poet, must go to your writing table every day. This is what she would say, And this
Wow.
this was in the early years. And I was Sapphire and I were in that class together. And
Oh,
we would
yes.
look,
Sapphire, who wrote the
yeah,
novel Push. Oh, yes.
we would look at each other like, what? But
Wow.
we did it. Cheryl Clark for her bold bravery on lesbian subjects.
Hmm.
Uh, every every year, every writing period, there was someone else. Lucille Clifton for her sweetness and her bravery. I think I think bravery is what I like.
Oh, I love that.
Bravery
Because it
and
has to
boldness.
start with courage.
Yeah,
It's as you mentioned
courage.
earlier, when you were saying now I've gotten to this point where I speak my mind, I speak my truth, and it's like, if it doesn't come from that, where can it come from?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, I also love Araceli Gamai.
Oh,
She
yes.
influences me so much. Oh boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
really great, great poets and artists. And, um, they all have their voices and their place in our literary history,
Yes.
um, which is wonderful. And I love you mentioning these names because as you're talking, Cheryl, you're speaking the history, not only of your history, but these are names in addition to yours that students can look up and people can look these voices
Yes.
up and learn more and follow the work.
And Rosamund King, let me say that. Rosamund King is another poet that they should look up. Yeah, people should look her up. She just takes off on her own different fantasy. The way she uses words, oh my goodness. Exciting.
Wonderful. I love this. Okay, so Cheryl, I love to circle back to your new work, Mama Fife Represents. Um, and I love the color of this book. You can touch the texture, but you can also feel the soul of this work. And I know the connection that you have with your son, Malik Phife Dawg Taylor, who you mentioned was a member of the notable hip hop group A Tribe Called Quest, and just wanting to mention so much of this work I'm just seeing is your history. There's family here. There's memory. There's reflection. So please tell me about your inspiration for this work. How long, if you can, remember about the journey of writing it. How long it took, and any of your special poems that you really want to talk about from this collection.
Yes. Well, first I want to say that I began writing not a book, but I began writing my feelings and my heart. Losing Malik was the most devastating loss I have ever had in my life. And I lost my mother 6 years before that. And I thought that that was the end of me. But I learned that when a mother loses a child, that is something that's unspeakable. And so one of the things that was happening during the time that he passed was that I was forgetting things. I would ask questions. I asked my partner one day, I said, "Was my brother at the ceremony, at the funeral?" And she looked at me and said, "Yes, of course." So I was asking things like that, not remembering who said
Mm.
what. And I started feeling like I was going to lose my mind, my memory, and most importantly, my memory of him. The times that we had, I thought I was going to lose his voice.
Wow.
And
Mm.
yeah. And so, I was a social worker and I thought I knew everything about grieving. I could help clients with it, but I couldn't help myself when that time came. I didn't
Mm.
even recognize the person that I was. And so I began writing things down. I wrote letters to myself, letters to my mother, letters to God, letters to Malik, anything to try and keep me stable and steady. So I would say that the book follows my first 2 or 3 years of public mourning,
Mm.
which was a harder experience than when I lost my mom, because everywhere I looked or heard on the radio or something, it was something about him. And
Mm.
and as I said, there were wonderful things and it made us happy and it saved us, but yet they were hard to see sometimes. I
Wow.
couldn't do it. Like when the album came out, their last album, and they invited us to Saturday Night Live because they were performing it there.
Yes.
After that concert, I just took to my bed the entire weekend. I
Mm.
could not, I couldn't continue, I couldn't go on. That's how I felt.
Wow.
So it didn't start off as a book, but more of a journal entry. And the poems are told through a tapestry of narrative poems, dreams, anecdotes, little stories about Malik and his childhood, journal entries, his poems, his letters to his dad and I, some of his hip hop lyrics. So those are just things that I combined into a long form. What I realized was that memory doesn't come in a linear form, or it didn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to keep it as close to the reality of how I wrote the book. So I wrote it as ideas came to me, as thoughts, as memory.
Wow. And when or how far into that process of it sounds like you were taking your time with yourself, processing your grief. You were using your writing really to heal yourself.
Yes.
But when did you know, okay, this is actually forming into a collection?
I guess sometime near the end of 2017. He passed away in March 2016. Sometime near the end of 2017, I began to see, wow, this is turning into a book. Now, there were two things that was important to me. One, I wanted to share with people that death and grief is nothing to be ashamed of, and that there is no standard for it. Nobody can tell you how to grieve. And the third thing was that I went to therapy because I did not think that I could make it through on my own. Although I had my partner, I had my daughter in law, and my daughter in law and I used to talk every morning. She's in California, and sometimes she'd call me at 5 o'clock, and we'd just be quiet on the phone. That was the first year. It was so tough, but we had each other and we hung in there. And I had to go to therapy because it wasn't working out. So I
Hmm.
also wanted people, everybody knew, not everybody, but fans all over the world knew Fife. I wanted people to learn who Malik was and how do you come from a premature baby, 2 pounds, 15 ounces,
Wow.
to be a loudmouth Caribbean boy who lives a dream and shares it in the world and lives to change the face of music despite all of his medical issues. That's a
Yes.
mouthful, but that was my impetus for writing the book. I wanted people to remember him.
It's amazing. And, I also find as I'm reading through the poems that not only is it a marker, as you just mentioned about what Malik was able to do and accomplish, but it also seems to be a tribute and a recording of your relationship
Yes,
with Malik and his relationship with others in the family and of course, with Tribe Called Quest, the
yes.
the history. There's just really so much here. And so, can you talk about the different? It's almost like the different sections or the different perspectives of your life, Malik's life, and how they merge together in this collection.
Well, I definitely wanted to explore our lives together as mother and son, artist, teacher and friend. I also, in some of the poems, I wanted to show his vulnerability because a lot of times society, people in society tend to think that the young men that do hip hop and rap are the lyrics that they write, you know, to the way they talk about women, the way they talk about money and things, so people generally put a lot of them in that category as not caring, not feeling, lack of emotion. Not everybody, but they definitely do that with a lot of people. And I wanted people to see that Malik was not like that, and to be able to see that, yes, so you're hearing this music. They are just writing songs. They have an inner life. It's not that you're going to see it, but don't think of them as hoods and gangster rats. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to show his vulnerability, and one of those poems is the poem that he wrote. Well, actually, it wasn't a poem. It was an email he wrote me telling me how much he felt like a mama's boy and how proud he was of it, and that was really important to me. And it was also important for me to apologize to him for the times when, I was working and in school and a 20-year-old mom, those times when, I really didn't know what I was doing, but I was trying to, you know, what is the word I'm looking for? I was trying to juggle all of it. In
Yes.
doing that at such an immature age, you miss a lot of things. And so I also wanted people to see that as a parent, you're not always right. You make mistakes, and it really is okay to apologize to your kids and let them know that you're sorry. You'll learn to do it another way. So those
Yes.
were the things that I was trying to cover in the book.
That's wonderful, Cheryl. And thank you for sharing that. And another thing that strikes me about this collection, your newest work, Mama Fife Represents, is you really bring the lyricism to the forefront. As I'm looking at the actual writing, there's like photographs of script of writing, as
Oh,
if it were
yeah, handwriting.
handwriting,
Mhm.
exactly. And it just makes me think of the poet who's writing down their thoughts and the stream of consciousness, or the rapper, the hip hop artist, as
Yes.
Malik was,
Yes.
who is getting those ideas down on paper. And it's the notebook paper, it's the composition notebook, or whatever they have to write on. For example, Fife's I Am Hip Hop lyrics on page 95.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
I feel like it really brings the personal viewpoint and the art of this is how the craft starts, uh,
Yes.
into this work. And so I wanted to ask you, Cheryl, do you have any favorite poems, or any poems that now, through this conversation we're having, that really jump out at you that you would like to share at this time?
Well, yes, I would like to share one of Malik's one I would like to share one of Malik's early poems that he wrote when he was 9 years old. And he was always interested in writing, but this particular summer, we sent him to camp at the YMCA for 3 years, and on the fourth year, he said he didn't want to go, and I always want to know why. So he said, "Well, the kids curse and they fight, and I want to spend that summer with my grandmother. We go to visit people at the hospital and shop and all of this stuff." And I knew that there was a lot of playtime written into that. So I wrote him a letter and I told him I don't mind him staying with grandma, but what I want him to do is to stop each day and write me a letter or a poem or drawing, whatever. And so I believe that Fife was born that summer. So this is
Wow.
what, yeah, I definitely believe that. And one
And
of the
what
first,
page are you on? Because I want to make sure
I'm
I'm going to follow you.
page 14.
Okay.
And so I'm going to read A Piece of My Mind. This is one of the poems he wrote. He he almost was trying to tell the parents how they should be raising these kids.
Wow.
And it's called A Piece of My Mind. Hey people, I hate to say this, but younger brothers around here hanging out on the corners and write graffiti on the mailbox. They cut school and play Pac Man, Galaxian, Donkey Kong, and they never stop. People, parents, you ought to give them a piece of your mind because when they get old, they show no, they should have studied. So people, give them a piece of your mind. So that was one of the ones that he wrote, chastising parents how what they needed to do to save their kids.
At 9 years old.
9 years
Yes.
old. That's what he thinks to do. Then there was another one. One of the first ones he wrote that summer was Dear Mom, today I made up 15 good songs. And he never stopped there. He kept going.
And how old was he then?
10.
10.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, he was 10. So, but that was one of the earlier ones.
That's
Something else.
wonderful.
Yeah. So I'm looking for two short ones that I could share with you. Okay, and one of the first ones.
What about in section Mama Fife?
What page is that?
So the section that starts on page 61, Mama Fife.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah.
Page 61. Oh, Mama Five. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He calls me Mama Fife. All his friends call me Mama Fife. I love how that sounds. I love how he says, "What's up, Ma?" I say nothing. What about you? I love how he always says, cool, cool. And when he hangs up, he says, love you, ma. Then he says, one. One love? I'm never sure which one it is, the number one or the word one. My son always called my mother and me Ma. And when he said Ma, we were never sure which one he was calling. Dear sunrise, I break with each dawn, waiting for his voice.
Hmm. That's nice.
That was an early, early stage when it was difficult.
Yes. Mm. Yes.
So since we're here, I'll just read Dear Malik,
Okay.
one of the letters that I wrote to him after his passing. Dear Malik, forgive the years when as a teen I became your mother. Forgive me when I disrespected you. Forgive me when I failed to listen. Forgive the years when you felt like an unloved teen, dull without your mother's shine. Forgive the wound that broke you from throat to fractured toe. Forgive me, love, Mom. And that wound was my divorce with his dad. That really, really hurt him. He was just 13.
Wow.
So that was a painful year.
And was Malik your only child?
I had twins when I had Malik, and
Oh,
and his twin brother only lived for 8 hours.
oh, so
So
that was the Ibeji poem.
yes, that's the Beji poem.
When I
And I
saw
don't
that,
know.
I said, "Oh, I
Mhm.
didn't." I said, "Huh? I wonder." I looked at that and I said, "Twins," but because I know Ibeji means twins.
Yes, Ibeji means twins in the Nigerian pantheon of gods.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you know, but I was a twin also, and my twin brother was stillborn.
Oh, I didn't know that, Cheryl.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to
yeah,
hear that.
yeah. Oh no, it's okay. It's a long time ago, but
And
these twins
hmm
ran in our family, and in the last few years, we've seen more and more twins on both sides, my side and on Malik's dad's side.
wow.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you. You have a poem on page 11. It says, "The summer Fife was born." What month was he born in?
November. Oh, the summer
Or
Fife was born, meaning when he began writing and getting very serious about his work. I knew
oh,
then that hip hop had gotten him,
yes. And he was now Fife.
and if
You
he
know,
was now five.
Fife was born, and as they say, call him Phife Dawg.
Exactly.
Later.
Phife Dawg was born
um,
then. And by the
wow,
time he was 12, he was looking for somebody to set up a group with,
wow. He was
and looking for
focused,
beats, and oh yeah, he was
looking for
very
beats.
focused.
He knew what he wanted at a
Oh
very
yeah.
young
Oh
age.
yeah. Oh
Hmm.
yeah. That's why I let him go on the road at that age. It was difficult to let him go, but it was difficult to keep him because he had been so sad since the divorce. And
Hmm.
this was the first time I saw this light come back into his being.
Wow. Art transforms people. Do you believe that?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
If I didn't have it, like I said, the last 5 years, they've been some of the most difficult years of my life. But I find myself laughing and making jokes and being funny. I've really come back into myself. And, it's the people around me, my partner and my daughter in law, some of my friends, but it's really my art.
Yes, indeed. And You know, I often hear people say that, as you mentioned earlier, wow, what would I do if I didn't have my art?
Do you
Mm-hmm.
feel like, hey, I'm one of the lucky ones? I have a vehicle in which to process everything going on in the world. I have something I can use to heal myself.
Uh,
Do you feel that way?
yeah. Well, I am grateful for it, but I often wonder how are people making it who don't have an artistic outlet.
Well, there,
I feel
yes,
more blessed than lucky.
yes. And you know what? That is a much nicer, better word. It's blessed because it's true. You have to wonder, good gracious, I know that I have this thing here that really, really
Yeah.
helps me. What is everyone else doing?
Yeah, and particularly that was made so clear in this last year, 2020. How are people holding themselves together with all of this, the pandemic, all the Black Lives Matter, Black lives we were losing? How are people coping? I
Well,
mean, I know you can go to
yes.
therapy. I know you can go to your minister, your family, or whatever.
Self-medicating, Cheryl. I think
Yeah,
a lot of people, I
yeah.
remember seeing something on the news that, alcohol sales had gone up just so
Yes,
much,
I saw that.
just so many different, people have really needed to, self-medicate and whatever else, who knows, maybe eating, I don't know,
Yeah.
you know, binge watching movies. Hey, I find Netflix to be very entertaining.
Oh, yes.
So, that's something I kind of picked up. I was never a Netflix watcher, but, in this last several
Yeah.
months, it's something that I
Yeah.
picked up. Yeah.
And I think one of the things too is that we have lost the art of calling on the phone and speaking. And so to me, that has made us lonelier during this particular time.
I agree. Because you know what? Everyone does Facebook or
Yeah, and I
or
don't want to
Twitter,
text with you for an hour. I'd rather talk to you for half an hour and hear your
Yes.
laughter and yeah.
That is so true, Cheryl. Oh my gosh. You can talk on so many different subjects. Do you know that? Like, my goodness.
My mother used to say I was a chatterbox.
Yeah, no, it's great. You're a podcast host dream.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, but I've been really blessed to talk to some really wonderful people, and you're one of them. So
Oh, I
it's really
appreciate
great.
it. This has been really enlightening and enriching and creative. And so thank you for the opportunity to be seeing you sometime soon when I get back home then.
You will. And you know what? And I miss you. I miss you as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Totally.
The work that you're doing, you're bringing so much to people at a time when they really, really need it.
Yes, thank you so much. Well,
Yeah.
I just go with the inspiration and how the spirit moves me. That's all.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yes, and so please tell me where we can find Mama Fife Represents.
Okay, we can find it on haymarketbooks.org,
Okay,
and they can follow me on Instagram at Cheryl.arrivalpoems.
wonderful. And
And let me just give my website too, because we put a lot of information on there.
oh, yes,
Sher-
please.
yeah, CherylBoyceTaylor.net.
Oh, that's wonderful. And
And on
Cheryl,
Twitter at Mama Fife.
oh, oh, great, Twitter. Twitter
Mhm.
is awesome. It's a great way
Yes,
to promote your work.
yeah, it is.
And what can we look forward to? How can we further support you, Cheryl? And what's coming up for you next?
What's coming up for me next February, my new book is called We Are Not Wearing Helmets, and they are political poems about community. And I honor some of the women whose footsteps I'm walking in, Entezaki Shange, Audre Lorde, some of my peers. So that is coming up. I talk about the years when we marched and marched and marched, and how things haven't changed much. And so that's, I'm really looking forward to that book. It's a whole different voice and different story.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
it's coming from Northwestern University Press, the same press as my last book, Arrival.
Oh, Arrival.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Cheryl. You are quite prolific. This pandemic has not stopped you from, just being a poet and being,
Thank you.
I love it. Productive, um, being someone who is supporting other poets, getting your own work out there. You're one of the wonderful poets in my network that I've seen really, really taking advantage of doing the virtual events and
Yeah.
doing, online and virtual tours, which I think is really great.
Yeah, we don't have a choice right now. But before I go, um I want to shout out Haymarket Books. I want to shout out the designer of the cover, Makiba Rainey. She
Oh,
she designed this cover, and that photo of Malik is a self-portrait that he took about 2 weeks before he died.
wow.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a beautiful cover. I think I mentioned that. It looks like fabric, and then he's front and center, and it almost looks like there's a halo right behind him.
Yes, it does. That's the kind of
Mm-hmm.
work that she does. She's wonderful in her art. Makiba Rainey.
Makiba Rainey. I'll definitely
Yes.
look her up. And I also love the representation of, if anyone else picks this up, the red, black, and green.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
you
There's.
know,
Oh, are you talking about the new cover? The hardcover?
I have the paperback, and I see that red, your name is in red, and then there's a slight
Yeah.
accent on his shoulder in green.
Oh yeah, there was another limited edition, and it was the tribe colors in red, black, and green.
Oh,
A hardcover.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
But
beautiful. Yeah.
it was a very short run.
Oh, it was limited edition for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, that's great. Well, Cheryl, it's
Yeah.
been a pleasure to speak with you today.
And
A-
you too.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. And again, congratulations on Mama Phife Represents. And I hope you will continue to do a phenomenal job in, reading and sharing your work through the summer and in the fall. And I look forward to supporting your next work as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I look forward to meeting with people again, hearing their voices, clapping in those little bars we hang out in.
That's right. And how about, hey, let's have, some more pomegranate series when
Yeah,
things
yeah.
open
Oh,
up again,
yes, yes, yes. I
Yeah.
stopped it so I could write these two books, just so you know.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah, of
All
course, you've
right.
got to
So,
focus on your work
oh,
too.
you have to. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, thank you for what you bring to us. Thank you very much.
You're welcome,
And
Cheryl.
congratulations with your work and your writing too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, take care, Cheryl.
Okay.
And you were just listening to episode 30 of Nerdacity Podcast featuring my guest, Cheryl Boyce-Taylor. Pick up a copy of her latest book, Mama Phife Represents. Visit her website at cherylboycetaylor.net. I hope you'll follow Nerdacity Podcast on Instagram at Nerdacity Podcast. Tweet me and also follow on Twitter at NerdacityPod1. Visit my artist and author website at DuEwaWorld.com. If you've been enjoying these episodes, consider supporting future podcast episodes by donating at paypal.me/DuEwaWorld or by sending to anchor.fm/DuEwaFrazier/support. Thanks so much for listening. Take care.